This man is about to become the first person in history to walk an unbroken path around the Earth. And after 27 years of walking, he's now on the final stretch. You see, Carl Bushby started walking all the way back in 1988 from the very tip of South America in Chile. And he planned to walk all the way back home to the UK without breaking the mission's only two rules. One, he can't use any form of transport to advance. And two, he can't go home until he arrives on foot. But how bro hasn't died yet along the way is nothing short of a miracle, because he has somehow made it through the big three. The first is the Darien Gap, which is a remote, roadless space of jungle between Colombia and Panama, and is commonly known as the most dangerous stretch of jungle in the world. Not only because it's filled with deadly animals, swamps, smugglers, and gangs, but also because while he was walking through, Colombia was an active war zone. And at one point, he even said that he had to sneak through front lines as there was fighting. The next time he should have died is when he attempted to become the first person in modern history to walk on foot from America to Russia on a frozen ice bridge called the Bering Strait. It took him 14 days of walking and swimming through freezing temperatures, and at one point he even got swept 52 miles north, because remember, this gap is not frozen solid, so the ice still moves around with the wind. Despite this, he still somehow doesn't die, and he makes it through to the other side. Once in Russia, though, they arrested him for multiple weeks, and they actually wanted to give him 5 years in prison. Now, luckily, he managed to get himself released, but things weren't cruisy from there, because right when he started to make his way through Asia, the Siberia, Mongolia, China, the 2008 financial crisis hit, and he lost a bunch of key sponsors that he was relying on financially. Things got so rough during this period that he said there were days where he would go without food. But it was when he made it to the edge of Asia where he would face his biggest challenge yet, the Caspian Sea. Problem is, if he wanted to walk over it, he would have to enter Russia, and if he wanted to walk below it, he would have to enter Iran. Neither were good options. In fact, he spent over a year in Turkmenistan just trying to figure out a way to proceed. And once he realized the only way to advance was to swim across, Plan Crazy turned into Plan Reality. For the next 31 days, he swam over 300 kilometers across the Caspian Sea, becoming the first person ever to do so. And that's despite him saying that he is a terrible swimmer and he hates it. Once over that hurdle, he then continued across Azerbaijan, Turkey, and then just 2 months ago, now in 2025, he officially entered Europe, the last continent and the home stretch in his nearly 3-decade journey. This man has walked through wars, pandemics, the invention of the smartphone, the launch of the freaking International Space Station. Bro has missed everything. He has been walking so long that his final destination is where he left from, his mother's house. In fact, he is expected to arrive a few months after GTA 6 releases. Nothing comes after GTA 6. If they don't make a movie out of this man's life, I'ma be pissed. Guys, we may have just witnessed history. Yesterday, 22-year-old inventor Julian Brown ran the first ever muscle car on plastiline, his 110-octane gasoline he converted from plastic waste. As the live stream from Atlanta showed, he turned on the car to demonstrate there was no fuel inside. And sure enough, it didn't start. He then filled the car with a canister of plastiline, pressed the button, and the rest is history. Now, to be clear, Julian Brown didn't invent pyrolysis. Converting plastic to fuel is a well-established process that's been around for decades. But he did invent the world's first solar continuous microwave pyrolysis reactor, which fundamentally changes how expensive and renewable this process is. And he did all of this without the backing of large corporations, and he was able to build this in his own backyard
with a box of scraps!
Now, he says his reason for doing all of this is to send a message to the world that people are no longer going to wait for big corporations or big government to do what needs to be done.
Because this is our world. This is our Earth. And we care and we protect it.
In fact, in May, he even got his Plastidiezel scientifically tested and it passed with flying colors. The lab even went as far to say that Julian's diesel had better emissions than regular diesel.
I thought it was surprisingly well distilled. I thought it was surprisingly clean as well for plastic. And it blew my mind that plastic could be redistilled into diesel.
He says his end goal is to get this in the world and where it needs to be.
Let's get it in the world. Let's get it implemented how it needs to be, because that's the whole point of why I started this. And so that's the strive and the move, without a doubt, to get this where it needs to be.
I have just arrived to the craziest city on earth, and you probably have never even heard about it. This is Chongqing, China, where they have petrol stations on top of roofs, trains that run through residential buildings, buses in the sky, elevators for cars, multi-story restaurants floating on the river, and also the deepest subway in the world. It goes down 118 meters, which is roughly the height of a 39-story building, and it took me 15 minutes just to get to the bottom. But the craziest part? We're still on the ground floor. You see, the reason people call Chongqing the 5D city is because it served as China's World War II capital. All of those old underground bomb shelters have since been transformed into roads, basements, and buildings. So, good luck finding your way around. Here, you think I'm on the ground floor, right? Wrong, because if you go to one side, you'll see you're on level 1. And if you go to the other side of the square, you're now on level 18. And almost everywhere in the city is like this. Here, we're on the 14th floor, and the elevator even shows you that. But if you walk outside, you're now on the ground floor again. And if you think simply walking around the city is confusing, try driving. One wrong turn on these roads, and you're cooked. You might even find yourself accidentally entering the garage that is 500 meters to the bottom. Yes, I'm still driving down as I post this video. Here is why no one is going to save Ukraine. Now, don't get me wrong, over the past few weeks, a whole host of countries have been helping Ukraine with things such as weapons, medical equipment, and refugee agreements. But no country will help Ukraine fight Russia because Ukraine is not part of NATO. Now, NATO is a military alliance formed in 1949 by 12 countries, including US, Canada, the UK, and France, in which members agree to come to one another's aid in the event of an armed attack against any of the membering countries. In fact, NATO representatives met yesterday and confirmed that NATO will not engage in warfare against Russia unless a member nation is attacked. Now, this map shows the European countries which are part of NATO, which are shown in blue. Now, if Russia attempts to enter any of those blue countries, that's when World War III begins, because Joe Biden, along with other country leaders, have vowed to defend them. And in a speech given only a matter of hours ago, Joe Biden said that Putin's ambitions are a lot bigger than just Ukraine. He wants to reestablish the former Soviet Union. And I'm not trying to create fear, but thousands of troops have already been deployed to Poland in case anything escalates. And what makes things so much worse is that Ukraine had previously expressed desire to join NATO, but they remained shut out in large part due to Russia's fierce opposition to more eastward NATO expansion. And sadly, that is why no one is coming to save Ukraine. Saudi Arabia has just shocked the world by releasing the first look at their upcoming city called The Line. They are quite literally in the works of creating an entire city which is stacked 500 meters high, making it taller than the Empire State, stretching it out a staggering 170 kilometers in length, which for perspective would take the average human over 40 hours to walk, and then housing all of that in a mirrored glass wall. This linear city will eventually be home to a whopping 9 million residents, and the suburbs are essentially segments along this line which, and this is the crazy part, are organized in 3 dimensions. And because of that added third dimension, depth, everything you need in your daily life, such as your home, work, schools, shopping, are all within these 5-minute walk neighborhoods. And if you want to go visit Matey down the line, all of their services will operate with AI and run autonomously, making it possible to travel from one side all the way to the other in just 20 minutes. And because there will be no need for cars, the city will have 0 carbon emissions, and their energy and water supplies will be 100% renewable. In fact, they are so confident in their design, they had the audacity to create a model of what New York would look like if they adopted the same infrastructure as The Line. They've also strategically located this city so that 40% of the world can travel there in just a 6-hour flight, and is surrounded by both the ocean and mountains, giving the residents immediate access to nature. And just to make things even crazier, The Line is just one of the 3 projects that Saudi Arabia are working on, which of course I'll be making separate videos about. And while there's no official release date for when this could be complete, The Line is a large part of the country's Vision 2030 program. So the question is this somewhere you would want to live?